Welcome to the Faith and Mental Health Podcast, where two worlds collide. I am your host, DeAndrea Bolden. Join myself and others as we have relevant, engaging conversation on a variety of topics that are related to faith and mental health. So be sure to tune in weekly and also to subscribe. Did you know that you can listen to this podcast on all major podcast platforms, such as Apple, Google, and even Stitcher? You can even catch this podcast on my YouTube channel. As a listener, please know that we want to hear from you, and we hope that you would reach out with feedback, suggestions, and even ideas for guests and topics that you would like for us to include. Oh, do you mind helping me out by simply sharing this podcast with others? Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. God bless. If you have been wanting to start a podcast and didn't know how, try Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They even handle the distribution of your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Did I mention that you get all of this for free? To get started, download the free Anchor app or log on to anchor.fm today. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Faith and Mental Health Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm really excited to have her on. Her name is Chelsealya Payne. And so I'm going to give her a moment and allow her to introduce herself to our listeners. And I think we're going to have a really good and very informational or informative, I guess I should say, very informative conversation. And so Chelsealya, please feel free to introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this invitation. It is really an honor to be on this platform with you. I have followed you on social media for a little while now, and you just really, I love how you love other people. I love how you uplift and encourage us. And so it's my honor to be here. As she stated, I am Chelsealya Payne. I'm the founder of Pain and Glory Incorporated. We are a nonprofit organization located right here in metropolitan Atlanta. So we're down here in the South. But our reach, especially now, because we're all virtual, and our reach has expanded quite a bit virtually. Our platform stands upon three major initiatives. The first one being, interestingly enough, with October being Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention, that is where we started. We started on the platform of domestic violence awareness and prevention, as I myself am a survivor of domestic violence. We expanded that, and we started in 2005. So we started on that platform. We expanded to women's health and wellness. Over the years, we started that, I want to say in 2013, but it's always been, I guess you should say, about women's health and wellness, a bit more targeted about women's health and wellness. And then in 2014, we launched our most recent baby, which is another strip in the platform, which is Pain in the Pews, Mental Health and Ministry, where our goal is to bridge the gap between faith and the mental health communities, knowing that you can indeed literally have a therapist and have faith at the same time. And so those are our three platforms on which we stand. And as I said, we started in 2005. And these initiatives have just expanded and grown and grown. And like I said, our newest one started in 2014.
That's really good. That's really good. And I've never, it's so funny. There's a lady, she's on my Facebook page, and that's kind of her platform is domestic violence. And so I've never really paid a lot of attention to that, but I'm becoming more aware of it. Is sometimes that things are happening, but when it's not really in your neck of the woods, so to speak, you just kind of be like, oh, okay, whatever. but I'm seeing, domestic violence and reports of domestic violence becoming more common in the church. And so I think that you are spot on
Well,
um,
let me just
to talk
kind
about
of
that.
let me kind of interject because you are spot on. Because let me tell you how this happened.
Uh-huh.
Because you probably don't even know this. The way Pain in the Pews mental health and ministry came about is because God led me in 2013 to host an event called Pain in the, and I was sure nobody was going to show up to this, but God had given it to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it, but nobody's gonna come to this, Jesus. But it
Wow.
was called Pain in the Pews: Domestic Abuse in the Church, and I literally rented out a small venue because I'm like, nobody's coming to this. And what happened was the venue was too small. We
Wow.
had chairs down in places chairs don't even go. We were in there. We had, the good problem to have. It was too many people.
Yeah.
And so we had this event, domestic pain in the pews, domestic abuse in the church. And so what happened was that event was so pivotal. It was so amazing to me. I
Wow.
was really blown away because in my small thinking, I'm thinking, oh, I don't come to this. I'd had domestic abuse events, but it wasn't the church, right?
Right, right.
So I'm like, people don't really want to talk about this, much like what you just said. So what I did was that was in April. What I did was something I hadn't done before. You know how we usually have events, it's usually annually. If you have something, I don't care what it is, it's usually annually. Unless it's like a course or something.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular instance, God gave it to me again to hold it again in September. I want or it was towards the end of the year. So the first one
Okay.
was in April. Second one, he said, do it again. But this time it was Pain in the Pews, serving with broken pieces. And it was for leaders. It was whether you're a leader in church, whether you're a leader in business, in the marketplace, a leader in your home, right? So I learned my lesson and I got a bigger venue. But I ran into the same thing again. It was at the Marriott. I had a larger venue, but
Wow.
it was packed. It was
Amen.
packed. But here's the thing, and that was great. I take nothing away from it. It was
Mhm.
wonderful, but something happened. And that was from that first event,
Mhm.
domestic abuse in the church and serving with broken pieces. That's where, because I thought God was going to give it to me as it was going to be pain in the pews, colon, something, something, something every
Mhm.
time. So I thought it was just going to be a rolling, topic with pain in the pews being the foundation. That wasn't the case. What happened was God told me to pay attention to the first event and the second event and who had been inboxing me, who had been um, emailing me, who
Mhm.
had been texting me, who had been giving me these phone calls, right? He said, pay attention to who they are. And I didn't know everybody, of course, but he, started having me to look ministers, elders, people who were
Yeah.
leaders in church, right? And they were saying things at the time I didn't know, but as time went on, and I became more educated, I knew what they were: symptoms of depression,
Mhm.
anxiety, these things that they were experiencing that they didn't have language for.
Yeah.
But, and so from that was birth, Pain in the Pews, mental health and ministry. And that's where God, from the domestic abuse, because they are tied together,
Yes.
domestic abuse and mental health, they overlap
And wellness. It
considerably,
all of it comes together.
comes together. And so that's how it kind of came to be, because I opened up the door for people to speak openly about what had happened to them, whether it was recent or 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
The door was open.
Wow, that is really, really good. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that because, yeah, again, you don't know what you don't know. And so I didn't realize that, you know, so much was happening with domestic abuse. I had no clue. Excuse my ignorance for those that are listening. Please unclutch your pearls. Nobody knows everything but God. And so that's just not something that really been on my radar. Now, however, under the umbrella of mental health, yes, very aware
because where there's domestic violence, there's always mental health issues. There may also be substance abuse, alcoholism, and all type of traumas and triggers and things going on. And so, yeah, so this definitely is big. And so I want to, well, you kind of already talked about it, but what you do with pain in the pews, I want to, but I like how you talked about how the Lord kind of highlighted to you and told you, hey, pay attention to who's reaching out to you. And I
Yeah.
think it's important that you share a lot of it as leaders. I
Yes.
interviewed a guy, his name is Dr. Matthew Stanford. He is a very well known author and I believe he's a psychologist, and he teaches, he either currently does or he used to teach at a school of psychiatry. I think it was Baylor University.
Oh,
Nevertheless, hopefully I didn't butcher his bio. If I did, Dr. Stanford, forgive me. But the point is, he was talking about how the majority of people, when they have a mental health crisis, whether they are a believer or not, they seek out pastors and clergy. So it's so important that we are able to address mental health issues. However, a lot of leaders are even more apprehensive to get help because they're feel embarrassment, shame, nothing's supposed to be wrong with me. I'm a leader. This can't be happening to me. I'm anointed. God is using me. Nope, 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 nope. This is just the trick of the truck of the enemy. You know how we talk. This is just spiritual warfare.
that's it.
I gotta go into battle against the enemy and take what he stole. And we don't know how to sometimes just be practical. And
Come on
that's
now.
where I get in trouble a lot of times because folks get mad at me. And I've had people get mad. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having faith for God to help you on your journey. Like me, I've been on a weight loss journey, and I've been, kind of telling people, I think at this point I've lost about 30 pounds or so. And
Nice.
I'm like, there's nothing wrong with praying and trusting God to help you, but just to simply lay out before the Lord for hours praying for weight loss without saying, let me look at my diet and exercise more.
Now,
Sometimes we miss the practical side of things in the church. And a lot of people are missing the wholeness and the healing they could have because they just won't make a phone call and book a therapist. They
that is
won't
so
make a
true.
they won't make a phone call and say, you know what, I need some help. Some things are out of place. This is over I'm drowning emotionally. I'm drowning mentally. I'm drowning psychologically. I need help. I'm burnt out. I'm overwhelmed. And so sometimes it can be pride with us. It can be the pride of fear of what people will think or what other people will say, fear of people thinking that you're not anointed, or fear of feeling that you're not good enough. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that, because we want to break that shame and let people know at the end of the day, you are a human being.
Human
Take the
being.
title away, take what you do for ministry away, and realize you cannot do anything at your best if you're not your best. You
You
have
cannot.
to be at your best to give your best as a spouse, as a parent, as a ministry gift, whatever it is you do. So I want you to go back. I know I got a little wordy, Saints, but I want you to go back and I want you to really revisit that, and let's really talk about that. And even if you have some resources, so we can help leaders feel more comfortable in realizing you are human and you need help just like anybody else. If your blood pressure is high, that doesn't make you less anointed. If
Exactly.
if your sugar is low, that don't mean God is not using you. It just means something is out of whack in your body and you need to get help to help regulate it. And so
Absolutely.
sometimes we have to have the same mindset with our mental health. So go ahead. I want you to talk a little bit more about the piece about leaders as you doing
Absolutely.
pain in the pews.
Absolutely. So you said a lot of things that were so key, so key. I think that what I have found, especially since we're talking about ministry, is there is a huge stigma, and so we have not given leaders, lay persons have not given ourselves grace, and grace to heal, grace to get help. There's such a stigma there. And in all transparency, when I held my very first Pain in the Pews conference, very first one, I was so excited, so happy. And, I had these great speakers. And I had plenty of attendees and had, everything looked great, right? I had, what do you call them? Vendors, all
Mhm.
that. Had everything on the podium of what I was going to say. And what I found myself saying was something I didn't plan to say. And that is, I'm standing up there and everything's going great. Everything's like clockwork, right? If I had to give it, a ranking, is in my mind, is one of the best ones I've had, right? Until I got here. And I said out loud something I've never said in my years of being on the earth at that time. I said, and I am diagnosed with um, anxiety and panic disorder. And immediately, the shame and the flood of embarrassment, because I never said that out loud to anyone other than those who were closest to me, um, or someone who had maybe seen me have a panic attack, right?
Mhm.
I'm in a room filled with people. I don't know these people. And immediately, the shame and the embarrassment, and I dropped my head
Wow.
immediately. And all these feelings of how do I backpedal out of this? Immediately, it seemed like forever, but it was really milliseconds.
Right.
And what happened next was pivotal for me. What happened next, because I literally dropped my head. I was, all confident before that, and
Mhm.
I dropped my head because I was like, God, I didn't mean to say that. God, why did you have me say that? I didn't mean to say, I didn't mean to expose
Right.
myself, right? What happened next was I heard applause. And I'm like, wait, they're clapping for me? And God said, this is the door. You're not in this alone. And they see that they're not alone.
Wow.
So after that, I was fine. I don't have a problem now. It took me a minute now. That wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, and the birds start
Right.
flying. It wasn't, but I was, more comfortable. Now, mind you, I'm having these events, but I never, I'm having this conference, but I never wanted to say it about me because I'd gone a whole lifetime being able to hide that part of me because like I said, that stigma is there.
Mhm.
That's whether it's in the church or in society as a whole, the stigma is there. But for leaders, here's what I have found is, like I said a moment ago, not allowing that grace to be extended to ourselves. You made an excellent point just a moment ago about if you have your blood sugar is high, you have no problem
Mhm.
going to a physician to get that taken care of. If you're feeling lightheaded, if you're feeling dizzy, if you're feeling like we have no problem going to see a physician to have this checked out. But as soon as something we know it. We may not have a diagnosis, but we know when after the anointing is left and we're at home when we don't want to get out from under the covers, when we are like Elijah under the juniper tree. This is too much, is what he said. When we are in a place where there are issues that are going on, mental health crises, and we may not know that that's the term. We know that there's something going on. We don't want to address that. We want to put a spiritual connotation on that, but we don't put a spiritual connotation on the toothache that we're having.
Right.
We don't do that. And so a lot of, just because you're called into ministry and you're anointed does not negate the fact that maybe there's some trauma in your childhood. It could be a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
There could have all these things which lend to the anointing that's on your life. But if we sit back and don't allow help and healing and try to ascribe only a spiritual connotation to it, it's hindering our growth. And so I gave an example. I've given this example a few times because a lot of times I've heard, people say, I've heard people who have had a mental health crisis at church.
Mhm.
I've heard this several times while doing Pain in the Pews. I've heard this several times from people who have had the same experiences, like press and rewind, where they've been in church and they've been prayed for, and people are trying to cast out something they're calling it something that it's not, or
Mhm.
either trying to pray against a person and not whatever their crisis is. And so I give the example often. If someone comes over, if you're in a store and someone comes over the intercom and says, Janice, come to the front, come to customer service. Janice, come to the front of to customer service. We have something for you here to customer service. Well, if your name is Janice, you're not coming. You're
Mm-hmm.
not coming. And so same thing in the spirit. If you're not calling the right name, it's not moving.
Right.
So, I think what I have found is that in leadership in church, let me back up. You asked me about pain in the pews and some of the things that we do. What some of the things that we offer is we do mental health first aid training where
That's
people can
good.
get certified, where leaders can be certified. So it's kind of pretty much like first aid is. If you see this, this is what you do. If you
Are you
see
the
that,
one that do you
I
teach,
am
or
not.
is it somebody through your organization then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. And so we offer that.
That's good.
What, of course, in 2020 we weren't. Well, our last one was in person was the beginning of 2020, but and so
Yeah.
we're getting ready to do that again. We
Okay.
also, but we also every week we have every Monday night we have our Pain in the Pews broadcast that comes on Facebook and YouTube, where we have um, ministry leaders as well as mental health professionals as well as those who are in recovery come on. We have different things that we offer because there has to be an outlet. And what I have found is interesting in a few instances, more than a few instances, I have found that for whatever reason, and I don't question it, pastors and elders and leaders have felt comfortable coming to me, not in public. You're not going to see it on
Privately.
Facebook in a
Yeah.
post.
Right.
You don't see that. But, asking for help, asking for referrals, asking for, I don't know what to do. My members is going through this. Can you refer someone from me? And I appreciate that because what I have found, and this is not me saying this. This is from a pastor I heard that sometimes it's easier to not go to peers than it's easier to ask someone who you don't really know
Yeah.
because your peers, you don't want to appear as word you used earlier as weak
Week.
or not anointed. So they find it easier to come to someone who's already talking about it and who
Yep.
doesn't really know them.
Very true. Very true. And so I think that's a good thing. Now, do you offer referrals? Because I get people always reaching out to me to referrals, and I typically send everyone to Faith Solutions to Mental Health. But if you do have a referral list of therapists, please feel free to share that, so we can get that out there. And like I said, I want to add some things um, that you offer and listed on the website and things like that. But I want to, while we're on here, I want to talk about this book that you released. I've heard through the grapevine. Okay, you told me, you the grapevine.
I'm the
I want,
grapevine.
I want to talk about your book. I want you to let us know, what is the title? What is this book about? Who is it for? Where can we get it? Let's talk about this book.
Excellent. I'm glad to. So the book is there's no health without mental health. And I am part of an anthology. I'm actually one of the 9 authors. I'm right, well, it's backwards, right here.
Okay.
Uh, and this book is an account of our stories, our personal journeys. It's not very thick. So you don't, it's not a long read, but it definitely is a powerful one. And
Good.
so I'm chapter 3, and my chapter is entitled Breathe. And it's entitled Breathe for a reason.
Mhm.
There's a reason behind Breathe. And so it is available. I can send a signed copy to you. You can just go to our website, which is Pain and Glory, just like my last name, not the I, Payne, painandglory.com. And again, there's no health without mental health. It is a powerful read. It also in the book gives references and resources as well. So every
Good.
chapter has references and resources in the book. And so that was my very first books and that was in 2020 last year.
Mhm.
And it was interesting to write because no one had really asked me. No one had really asked me the questions that the writing coach was asking. And so and she told me there were going to be times where you're going to be like, "Woo, wait a minute, oh,
Mhm.
this is painful." And true enough, the tears were shed, but it was so worth it. And that's all, in here. You'll see just
Yes.
a snippet. It gives a snippet of my journey.
Awesome. That is awesome. So people can get that on your website. You said that's Payne, Payne, and glory.com. And
You
so
got it.
definitely I want you guys to look into that. I'm going to be adding that to the Faith and Mental Health website. I'm going to add that. So I just need you to send me a picture of the cover and a link, and I can get that up later today as a resource for people, a book for relating to faith and mental health. And so I think that I applaud you for being open enough to share your testimony and share your story, because I think a lot of people kind of, because we live in a society where there's always information out there, we almost kind of think like, oh, okay, somebody's telling their story. No, someone's telling their story.
Yeah,
You're naked before the world. When you're telling
absolutely.
your story, you're uncovering yourself in a sense. Like you're being very transparent, and it takes a level of vulnerability. And so I applaud you
Thank you.
for taking the time to do that. And so what I want you to do before we get off here, I want you to share any references or resources you have, and then I want you to let people know how they can find you, so that they can know about the next Pain in the Pews event, so they can know about any upcoming. I think you said you do the events on Monday. How can people get plugged into what you're doing? What resources are available? How can they contact you? All that type of stuff. So let people know.
Absolutely. And just one quick thing, one thing
Yeah,
you said that made me think, you asked me who is this book for?
yeah.
Um, it definitely is for people who who have or may have any kind of mental health challenge, but it
Mhm.
really is a great resource for anyone who has a loved one. If you are a loved one of a
Wow,
person who has a mental health challenge, you might not know that this is what they're experiencing because
that's
they're
good.
not feeling comfortable enough to tell you. The stories in here about the woman who is molested, and she gets to tell her story. You get to hear about me and breathe, so you get to hear the other side, because sometimes it's hard to articulate to our family members and loved ones, but in here it kind of gives you an insight. So as you said, we do every Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry broadcast, and that is done live every Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. We have a different guest and different topic every week. This past week, oh my gosh, it was a little. It was, since this month is dealing with domestic violence
Mhm.
awareness and prevention. It was a very interesting and very powerful interview I had with a young lady whose daughter tragically was taken from us too soon at 19 years old just last year. I will warn you, that one, if you have triggers, that one may be more sensitive for those who are sensitive to those type matters. However, this coming Monday, and all of these are available for replay. So if you're listening to this particular podcast later on, don't worry about it, because listen, it's all available on Facebook and on YouTube. And so we do that every Monday night. And this coming week, we will also round out Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We will be having very soon, I'll be announcing it soon, we will be having mental health first aid training coming up very
That's
soon.
good.
And so we will be having that. I'm going to see about having it virtually, because I know that some
I was
people,
going to ask that. Yes.
yes, I do know that is something that would be very beneficial for so many reasons, for so many people. That is one of the things we're working on. As well as, you can go to our website for any of the upcoming events. We're actually adding, you asked about resources. We're adding resources to our site. Actually this week, interestingly enough that you asked that, because we have a whole list. of resources. However, if people are interested in just if they know, okay, I need this, then of course, NAMI.org, NAMI.org is an excellent resource. Psychology Today, excellent resource. Just go, those off the top of my head are two great resources. I say Psychology Today because if you're looking for a physician, a mental health clinician, that would be a great place to look. If you're looking for resources, whether you're a caregiver or a person who is experiencing a mental health crisis, NAMI.org is an excellent place to go.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, NAMI, yeah, I have that. I believe I have their crisis hotline and stuff on the footer of the Faith and Mental Health website. And so yeah, I have that. I have a very long list of resources, and I'm always adding to it. And so I want to say thank you, Chelsealya. See, I got it right, for being my guest. I'm honored to have you. I've learned a lot more about you and a lot more about what you do. And so I'm excited about who you are and what you do. I celebrate you. And so I want to say thank you to the listeners. Please, please, please check her out. Go to her website, get the book, attend the event, see what she has going on. I think she has a lot that could be very beneficial, especially to leaders and ministry teams and different things like that. And I've seen some of her flyers. She always has a good lineup, usually is a mixture of clergy and mental health professionals. So please check it out, check it out. And so this has been a great and very informative podcast interview. And so again, thank you for being my guest, and thank you to those that were tuning in, and God bless you.